morning, Flosstube. I'm Tanya the Starlet Stitcher. Welcome to my cross stitch channel, and I'd like to welcome all of you to seeing all the things that I've got going on in this last week. There was less chaos, thankfully, although I was kind of thrown off a little bit by how late I filmed and uploaded last week, so it made, I don't know. It wasn't bad, but it still felt a bit weird. So in the future, I think I should probably not do that. But I do have several things to show you. I have a little bit of haul. I have a little bit of life updates. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first up, I've got Long Dot Samplers Pandemic. This is what it will look like once it's done. And I made it to the halfway mark this week. Put that away. It's kind of big. And here is the whole thing all together. That is 10 pages out of the 20-page chart that I have done now. And what I did this week on here was, okay, so this had one day. I made that my Saturday because Saturdays I can get a lot more stitching done than on any other day of the week. Generally, that's just the way that it is. So that's what I did for this, is I got my Saturday. And so basically this corner from like here down and like from here this a ways, that's what got done on Saturday. And there we go. Now this is a 28 count Haunted Lugana by Picture This Plus. I'm stitching it 2/2 and my floss is DMC 3756. Except for those little butterflies up there, I did the back stitch with DMC 647. And so I'm going to give you a close-up look across the whole thing for those who are watching for the first time. Now I can't see what I'm doing right now, so hopefully it's coming across okay. Now it does give it kind of a lacy look. I really love the way that it looks. Oops. Okay, so there we go. And I've been doing all of my backstitch with 2 strands also, just because I don't want to go back and only do it with 1. So I've just been kind of snagging the backstitch as I go with the same 2 strands that I'm doing the crosses with. I think it looks fine that way. Personal preference. If you can do it the right way with the 1 strand and you want to do it that way, that's fine too, obviously. There is no right or wrong way to do your cross stitch. It's just whatever. Everything goes. So let me put that there. Okay, so next up, I worked on My Land That I Love by Teresa Kogut. I am in love with this design. Now, I worked on this every day in this last week. This has been my morning stitch, and that's it. So every morning I'm up between 4 and 6. Just kind of depends on when, you know, my body decides to get up. And so, yeah. I don't wake up my little to get her ready for school and stuff until about 6:30. So if I'm up at 4, that gives me 2.5 hours of not being disturbed by anybody in here for stitching. So that's really good. If I'm not up until 6, that gives me a half hour. So either way, it's still a little bit of stitching time every day that I have just to myself and being, yeah, left alone to do my things. All right, so last week when you saw this, I had a lot of this done. I think I had it done to, like, you know, on this bottom row of windows on the house. I think I had one window done and the door plus a step under it and across that ways. And I think I had this flower and this leaf done in the border the last time you saw this. I think. I could be wrong by a little bit, but yeah, I think that's where I was. And so, here it is. little bit weird because it's kind of tall. Let me see if I can back up a little bit. Okay, there we go. I'd like to back up my tripod at some point, but you're like right up against the sink here in the camper, and yeah, it makes it a little bit weird to show you guys some stuff. Okay, so let's pull it in closer. Alright, so the big giant house is done. Alright, so the side of the house, went all the way down. I finished the last 2 windows, the entire foundation, and the rest of the steps. And this right here, that's a flagpole. So there's a flag that goes right here. That's on page 5. I'll be putting the flag in before I go back up to page 2, just because I want to. Okay, so I also brought the border down and around the corner and over around here. And this flower pot went in this morning. I had like an hour to stitch this morning because I was up a little bit late, but that's what an hour's worth of stitching looks like for me, was this flower pot here. Because I have had some questions like, wow, you must stitch really, really fast. And I'm like, no, not really. I just have a lot of time to stitch, like Kimberly Jolly levels of time to stitch. Except for her, it's her job. For me, it's just, you know, something fun and keep myself occupied type of thing. It's not a job for me. It's just what I like to do. And right now, since we're in the camper, I didn't even have like real housework to do. So that's kind of the trade-off. But there we go. Land that I love. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you what I was stitching this on because I forgot to tell you last week too. Okay, so this is a 32 count Silvery Moon Lugana by Witchell. And I'm stitching it 2/2 with all the called for flosses. And there we go. Okay, so bonus stitching. It's a Maydear 11 count kit. That's what it'll look like once it's done. And this is going to be a gift for one of my nieces for Christmas whenever it's finished. And here's where it's at. Okay, so last time you saw this, I had started on the reef. This week, I finished the, I want to call it green because that's what you think of with a wreath, but it's kind of more like a greenish, bluish, kind of turquoisey color. Whatever. I finished putting all that in, and I did the back stitch around this part, and before I did the back stitch up here, I started in on the unicorn's butt. So that's where I'm at. Okay, you can probably hear that. That's the dump truck going. They're heading off to go and do a job today. And so, yeah, that's where that is at. Now, I call it the bonus stitching because 11 count, that's really big. It's easy to see. Plus, it's stamped, so I don't even have to count anything. This is like, you know, when I don't have very much light or my eyeballs are getting tired because it's towards the end of the day. But this also makes for good TV and movie stitching too. Then you don't have to worry about making a mistake. Okay, so the focus piece. This is my Maynia project. Well, I probably shouldn't say project because I was already working on it. But this is Heaven and Earth Designs, Unicorn Poop for sale. And the artist is Sheena Pike, and this is what it'll look like once it's done. Okay, so last week, that was cool. Okay, so you've seen a little, just the faintest tip of green here, and a tiny little piece of the flower right here. And so I was telling you the next time that you should see this, there should be a whole lot more color going on. So I hope when I go to show you this that I do not disappoint in coming through on what I had said. Okay, so you ready? Here it is. Oops. Ta-da! This is where it's at now. Now, when I said you should see a lot more colors, I'm talking about I was probably working with at least 30 colors in what I got done. All right, okay. So almost this entire flower, these darker parts of the green, and then I also had a whole lot of parking going on. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see what my progress was, because like I generally go across block by block and then park in the next block down below, and so my parking was starting to get a little bit crazy. And then there were some where there wasn't no more over here, so I shoved it over here, and so there was a whole lot of crazy parking going on this side too. And so I park, but I don't like it to stay really messy for very long, and so I cleaned up over here, and then yesterday I cleaned up down here. Now these two that are still left, as you'll see, this is because they're kind of like by themselves, and I am not very confident in my ability to anchor my stitches on the back when it's just a single stitch. Now if I was doing this on 25 count 1/1, I would just end with a pin stitch, you know, elsewhere, so that it would get covered up in the back once I go back and do other stitches. But this is an 18 count easy grid Ada, and that I'm stitching 2/1, so this is 2 threads, and I'm like, not really sure how I'm going to end that. So but those ones, I just left them there, and those stitches will get done because they're the last ones of that color in the entire area. They won't be getting carried anymore. So when I'm able to anchor them in the way that I feel confident about on the back, that's when those stitches will get done. But in the meantime, there was like 80,000 other parked threads that all went in, so I am okay with just having 2 left of those. Alrighty, and so you guys are the first to see how this is going since yesterday, because when I posted on Instagram yesterday morning before I started stitching, all of my parking was still left here, and I hadn't done anything up here on page 5 yet. And so with the parking down here, I had done that first yesterday morning, and then I put an additional 1,020 stitches up in page 5. And so I do stitch like, I don't know, K speed, probably around, I don't know, but when there's only 1 or 2 colors, it definitely goes a lot faster than the confetti areas. And so, yeah. Alright, so I did leave it in the Q-snap today because I wanted to show you all something else. Alright, so I'm going to show you what my back looks like. Some people will be interested to see, some not, but you're going to see it anyways, and if you don't want to see it, just fast forward by like a minute. Or maybe only like 30 seconds. But anyhow, give me that back. So this is what my back looks like in a confetti area. Okay? Now you'll see over here where I was cleaning up my parkings, you can see my carries where I went from one block to another. That's all I carry, is just one block over. And so you'll see that where the rest of the colors aren't filled in yet. But trust me, my carries in this area here in this flower are just as far as they are over here. Now there are some people who will say, you know, when they're doing the full coverage, they'll talk about doing, you know, one block to the next, left to right, and they start with the color that has the most stitches. I don't do mine that way. When I'm in a confetti area, what I will do is I will purposely start with the stitches that have the least amount. Like I do go line by line, but I don't necessarily go from left to right in those areas. I will take the color that has the least amount of stitches and do that first, and then park it in the next spot that it goes in, because that leaves the carry looking like this, okay? But when you go back in to do your colors that have the most stitches, that covers up most of the carries that you did. And so that is how the middle of my flower, which had the most confettis going on, ended up looking like this, because like all of these like pinks and purples, you know, those little dots of the flower, those all looked like this when I started with all the carries. I mean, there is no right or wrong way to do it, just like I said. And then also one thing that you have to understand is when people recommend doing the colors that have the most stitches first, is what you get out of doing it that way is it builds yourself a foundation to count off for your other stitches. Because when you're going off with just, you know, the stitches that I do with just the least amount of stitches first, is before the other stitches go in, you have to realize you're going into a block that a stitch might just be all by itself, like this. And so when you do that, you do take a risk that you might make a mistake in your counting. I mean, even with the gridding, nobody's perfect. There's still going to be a mistake that happens every once in a while. And so when you do the most stitches to the least, when you're picking your colors, that minimizes the mistakes that you make. So there are different strategies on how to do this, but I thought that I would take the opportunity to show you guys my bag and talk a little bit about how I go about doing it. And then, so, yeah. There we go, unicorn poop for sale. Okay, so, I stitched on this unicorn poop for sale for 5 days in this last week. Okay, so unicorn poop got 5 days, pandemic got 1. So you'll notice that's 6 out of 7 days. Well, you have to remember that because I filmed and uploaded late last week, that was day 1. And I was doing Nutcracker Village that day. So that's where my day 7 went. Just in case anybody is curious about where my 7th day went. Okay, so I have a little bit of haul to show you guys. I tried so hard to be good, but Mother's Day was coming, and my birthday is June 6th, and I could not help myself. I decided, you know what, that's a good excuse. Yeah, Mother's Day, birthday, combination, and so yeah, bye. Okay, so when I'm talking about trying to be good, that means I'm still looking at the things and putting them on my wish list instead of actually putting them in my cart. Now where I go wrong is looking at the wish list and I have some things that stayed on my wish list for like 2 days and then they magically fell in my cart. I'm sure you know how that goes. But let me show you what I let myself buy for my own presents. Because my husband's not very good at gift giving, so I just buy myself and I tell him not to get me anything. Story of my life, right? Okay, so, oh man, I forgot to open this bag. Sorry. Okay, so, it wouldn't be a Flosstube if there isn't a little bit of disorganization, right? Alright, so what I got myself was a Mirabilia chart. This one is called Starlet. I had to. It had my name on it and everything. And then also I decided to get this because all of the things that I needed for it were in stock. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Okay, so this one only has 1 pack of beads that you need for it. And the flosses are all just DMCs. There's no silks or anything. And so I was like, yes. Now the called for fabric for it is a 32 count Country French Cafe Mocha linen. Now I haven't stitched a Mirabilia before, but I think that it's going to be kind of like my full coverage designs, where I think that I might like putting it on an even weave or Lugana better than putting it on a linen. Plus I don't actually have experience with linen, not till next year anyways. And so I didn't go with the called for fabric, but let me show you what I decided to put it on. This is a 32 count Desert Opalescent Irisy Lugana. I'm not sure if I pronounced irisy right, but this is something on 123 that I hadn't seen before, so I was kind of taking a chance with the color. And this is what that looks like. It's a sparkly fabric. Ooh, I got that to show it pretty good. But I liked how this looked here on the called for. Yeah, I mean, you know, she didn't need to be too fancy. I mean, usually on these fancy lady ones, I'm just like, I mean, I do have other Mirabilia charts, but I'm like, I don't know if I would pick a color similar to that. But I mean, you know, her color combination, you know, I think looks fine on the color fabric that they put her on. So I kind of wanted to keep kind of similar to that. And because, like, you know, she doesn't have any crinics or anything like that that would already be kind of flashy, I thought that this opalescent would work good for her. And I'm also kind of thinking that with this sparkly fabric, like if you want to use, like my Nutcracker Village is on an opalescent, Ada instead of a, you know, the raw silver linen. This is an option for people who want to go and start those kind of charts. This would also be good for, like, I mean, you know, other Christmas designs where you want a little bit of sparkly or whatever. So I definitely wanted to show you guys that. And this is the beads that go with it. Just that. That's the only beads. And these were the DMCs. Okay. But I also kind of think like, I haven't actually stitched a Mirabilia before, and so that was another reason why I decided to get this. I was like, why not start with, I mean, make this my first Mirabilia, because it only has DMCs and only 1 pack of beads. And so, yeah, the chart is easy enough to read. What I don't like about it is the chart is really big and it's folded up kind of like a map. So, like, you know, pretend like this is your chart. It's like you have to unfold it like this and like this and like this. And that's what your Mirabilia charts are like. Now, I have seen some other people talk about their, I guess the newer ones that have come out more recently aren't like that. They're more like a book, but I don't know. I don't have any that are like that. Mine that I have, they're all in like that map kind of style. So I'm going to have to see when I go to make working copies what my copy guy says about trying to get that copied. If it's not going to be that easy for him without, you know, folding and unfolding the chart a million times, it might be a better idea to just kind of snap a picture and put it on a computer and work off of it that ways. I don't think that that's like a copyright violation if all I'm doing is just for my own personal usage and not sharing it to anybody else and then deleting it whenever I'm done, because I don't like to mark up my original charts. And then plus, like with the folding and unfolding, like I said, you're gonna wear out the chart on those creases, so I don't want to do that either. So when it comes time to do this, that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. Now, I'm not going to start her right away. I just want to get her kitted up right away because, like I said, the stuff was available. I mean, you know how fabric is right now, and she only needed the 1 bead, and that was in stock. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just get it all, and then it'll be ready, and I will put this on my 2023 list. So I'm like, yeah, so she's all good to go. Oh yeah, but I did want to talk about don't believe the list of stuff that 1, 2, 3 Stitch says that you need, because I should have had this ready and I didn't. Okay, so when I get stuff, like a chart, I write in the book, like for example, okay, well, you know what, it might be better if I just turn to the page that I put this on. Okay, so I have a composition book that I write the chart name, the designer, and all the stuff that it calls for on the same page. This way I don't have to take out or find the chart to know what I have already that goes with it. And I don't know. This is just what I do. Okay, so I wrote down all the stuff that was needed for her because she came in with all of her stuff, but I still write it in the book. A check mark means that I've ordered the thing. A cross out means that I have the things. And so when I went to go and do that, on 1, 2, 3 Stitch, they do not have DMC number 27 in the list of colors that you need to stitch Starlet. And so, yeah, you're going to also need number 27. But they also list DMC 3608, and you do not need that color. Alright, and then on DMC number 30, they say that you only need 1 of that color, but you actually need 3. Okay, so those are the changes on the 1, 2, 3 list of things that you need to stitch her. I don't know if anybody cared for that information, but I thought that I would mention it just in case if somebody wanted to know, and that's just the way that it goes. Yeah. And so, yeah. Okay, so I have made a mess over here with my stuff because I have a little bit more to show you. My other presents that I got myself, I could not help myself. Now, these were ordered a few weeks back because Heaven and Earth Designs had another sale going. I'm sure you've seen the things that other people got because most people get their charts in PDF format, which, you know, works great because then they can put it right on their tablet, put it into their pattern keeper, blow it up or whatever. But I don't work off of PDF charts typically, unless that's the only format that a chart comes in. I do buy the hard copies and work off the hard copies. But what I got myself out of this sale, which, like I said, I got my stuff a little later than other people because I had to wait for my hard copies to come. It's not an instant download like PDFs. But anyhow, I got the supersized Once Upon a Fairytale Max Colors, which I've been wanting for a while but hadn't gotten, because if I was to get all the stuff all in one go that I want off of Heaven and Earth Designs, that would be a lot of money. So I kind of split it up. But I got this one. Oh dear gosh, the glare. Which it's really pretty. I like it a lot. I've seen other people working on it. And you know I did, because a lot of other people did too. Supersized Max Colors, The Grand Library by Aimee Stewart. She just knocked it out of the park with this one. I think that this may actually be my favorite chart out of all of her artwork that she has put out so far. Like, I also have the stitching shelf and the treasure hunt bookshelf, which those were my top 2 favorites. And I probably like the treasure hunt bookshelf slightly more than the stitching shelf, but I like both of those a lot. But I think I like this one even more than those ones. And do I know when I'm going to actually start these huge, ginormous ones? I don't know. But I had to have the charts because I would really like to do them someday. I don't know when, but until I do, I have the charts ready to go. And so, yeah, that is everything for today. And I will be back next week. Actually, I lied. I forgot to tell you guys a little bit about life updates. Okay, so, stuff about the house. I have been watching for a while, you know that we've been in here in the camper. It hasn't been all that fun for me because I can put my arms out like this, right? Straight out. But I cannot fully turn around in a circle in here without my hands bumping into something because it's small. No, I don't like it. Anyhow, so we have a power pole up over there on the property now. We are in the appraisal stage. The lenders hired an appraiser on Monday. I don't know yet if they've actually come over and, because they like appraise the property and all that stuff. But they don't come over here to talk to us first. They just kind of go over and do their thing like by themselves, and then you have to kind of like wait and hear back from other people. But that's where we are at. So far things are looking pretty good because the house that we picked is pretty much the lowest price per square foot for a 3-bedroom that you can possibly get in the entire state right now. And so even the lender's going, I don't think we need to worry about appraisal. The seller is going, I don't think we need to worry about appraisal at all. And so, yeah, everything else is all in place except for, you know, once the appraisal's done, we can close on this loan. Then the final construction will go on over there. Like, we still need to do the septic tank. The hole is dug, but it's kind of a swimming pool right now because of all the rain that we had last month. Like, I think we had like 3 days that it didn't rain in all of April, and I'm like, really? So the next biggest hurdle after appraisal is waiting for the ground to dry up, because you cannot put a septic tank when there's water in the hole. That kind of doesn't work very good. Your tank will just like float up to the top and spin around and not function the way that it should if you don't wait till the ground is dry. But so yeah, what we need for that is it needs to not rain for at least a week and keep the weather going hot like it is right now. Like, you can see, like, I'm like sweating already, and it's only like, I mean, you see my clock up there, it's 9 in the morning and we're already at like 75 degrees. I'm like dying over here, man. So hopefully we will get the nice hot sunny weather that we need to get it dried up over there and do those final construction phases. And then after that, it needs to sit for a couple of weeks for like concrete to dry and be what they call it, curing, I guess. And then it will be ready to receive the house. So right now we're kind of thinking, if things continue to go well, we might actually have our house by July if we're lucky. And that's factoring in stuff like you know, waiting for the whole loan process to finish out, waiting on, you know, worst case scenario for the ground to dry up and do the construction, and then waiting on, you know, for the house to actually get delivered, because thank God it's already built and it's ready to go. All they got to do is just take it from point A to point B and plop it in and put it together and anchor it to our stuff over here so it'll be attached to the ground. Oh yeah. And then also we have to wait for it to be like inspected and do termite spraying and final inspections and all of that kind of stuff before we actually get the keys. But yeah, if we can have our house here and I'm like, I can at least look at it by July, I'll be like, yeah. I mean, I did stuff like I've actually bought a little bit of furniture. I mean, nothing like super big, because when we left California, I either gave away or sold or dumped a lot of our stuff, because if you're moving out of California to anywhere else in the U.S., it's really, really expensive to move your stuff. And the stuff that we had and accumulated over, because we've been married for like 8 years, so we didn't have like a whole ton of stuff, but we also have kids too, and sometimes stuff does not last when your kids are a little bit savage. So we're like, do we really want to bring stuff that's kind of beat up and on its last legs to begin with? Not really. And there was one piece of a dresser that I really wanted to keep, but I didn't. I decided to let it go and sell it because it had a nice mirror that went with it. And that was probably the last thing that I sold before we left because I kept going back and forth. I was like, I really, really like this dresser. I don't really want to sell it. But the reason why I like it so much is because it's got this mirror, and traveling like 1,700 miles, that's a really long way to go without the expectation that the mirror would probably break, and if it does, I would be a very sad panda. So I ultimately did decide to sell that dresser, and so yeah. We have some other furniture pieces that we're going to be buying from family, so that will be very, you know, a pretty deep discount for us. But what I did need to get was I got myself what'd you call it? Like a sewing machine / craft table thingy. So my sewing machine will be able to get stored away underneath the desktop part and underneath where you can close up the cabinets. And it's got a little cabinet on the side where I can put like my finishing fabrics and stuff like that. And it also folds out so that the table expands to be twice as big, which will be great because, I mean, you know, I don't have my sewing machine out all the time. I only use it sometimes when I go to do my finishing up some of my cross-stitch stuff. So it doesn't need to be this big honking thing all the time. And then plus also with how long that we've been trying to buy a house now, which is like 1.5 years. I mean, this has been the most ridiculous process I've ever heard of in my entire life. I mean, like, you know, when we started, we were actually able to afford a 4-bedroom house. I had to make some sacrifices to make things still affordable for us because, I mean, you know, the housing prices were like here for us, and then since we started, it went like, and so I had to axe the 4th bedroom. So I no longer am going to have a craft room. So that means that to maximize the space that we're going to have is I need some dual purpose stuff. And so having that, and yeah. But it'll be all right because I probably should have, like, you know, started with an idea like that anyways. But the other stuff that I got was, I got, how would you describe it? They're not, well, I did buy some cube shelves, but that's because I'm also into board gaming too. So I need a place to put my board games because where we had them before we moved was I had cube shelves already for them, but they were not like solid wood. And so if I tried to transport them, like I said, like 1,700 miles, I mean, when you're transporting something that's basically made of like, how would you call it? I don't know if it's like particle board or particle wood or whatever it is that they make that kind of stuff out of. It would all like fall apart and stuff, and then it's no good when you arrive. So I just decided to sell those because there wasn't anything wrong with them. It's just they're not meant to be moved around a whole bunch. They're fine when you have them assembled and they're anchored to your wall and they're not going nowhere. But if you're like constantly moving that stuff around, they're not going to make it. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the beast when you buy cheap furniture, right? So I bought myself a couple of new cube shelves to house all of my board games. So those will be able to be taken out of all the plastic totes right away when we move into our house. And then the other thing that I got for, because I talked about that little sewing crafty table thingy for my sewing machine and other finishing stuff, I got something to put away my cross-stitching stuff because right now everything is living in plastic totes. I mean, other than what I have here, I mean, I have like this wooden crate thing and a couple of bags that I'm using as my project bags and my I mean, other than this stuff here that you see behind me, everything is living in I don't know if they're like watertight or airtight, whatever, plastic totes, because like we're super high humidity here. I'm at least trying to keep my stuff as safe as I can while I have it stored until I can get it put away in the ways that it should be when we're in the house. But anyhow, so I bought myself, they're not cube shelves, but it's like a combination of cube shelves with drawers underneath. And so I bought myself a couple of those so that I will be able to put away my stitchy stuff in a way that I like pretty much right away when we get moved into the house too. So like my charts, oh my gosh. My chart organization right now is like, they're just basically all, because like I have one tote, that's all just charts. That includes like, you know, my hay charts, all of my charts, they're all in one tote. However, they're not in any kind of an order. Like none of the charts by the same designer, those are not together. There is not even by type. So like all of my full coverage charts, they are not all together. There's not all of my small charts, they're not all together. It's just basically the organization that's going on in that tote is whatever I most recently bought is on the top, and that's my organization right now. So yeah, that's gonna be super fun. I mean, it's gonna be a lot of work, but like, I don't know, it might not be that bad. It might be like, I mean, like I said, I have my composition books that I actually write the chart name and the designer and all the stuff that it needs, and then I have another composition book where it's just only the chart name and the designer. I mean, it's not in alphabetical order or anything, but I do have some kind of reference to myself right now to try and avoid duplicate chart buying. It wouldn't shock me if it still somehow happened. I don't know. I will find out when I get to unpacking it all and putting it away, because what I'd like to do is organize them all by designer and then by chart name, like in alphabetical order, or maybe if there's a series, put all the series of the chart all together. All the charts in the series, rather. You all know what I mean. All those will be all together, and it makes some kind of coherent sense, so I can say, do I have this chart already or not? Because just because I don't start a whole lot of things back to back to back to back doesn't mean that I don't have some, major haul acquisitions at some time. I mean, you guys know how my oh my god, I almost called it the black market haul. The Nashville Needlework Market haul for 2022. I did a whole video on that. I mean, I got a lot. And so, yeah, that all needs a place to go, and it all needs to make sense. And, it can get kind of crazy if you don't have some kind of organization going on. And this is how some of us end up with extra copies of charts, which, I mean, okay, that means like giveaways and stuff. Which, by the way, I have not done any giveaways on my channel yet, because I still am kind of a smaller channel. Plus, being in the camper, it makes my mailing situation kind of a little bit weird. But I do have a small giveaway planned for when I get to 500 subscribers. I'm around 452 right now, I believe. But I've got a small giveaway planned for 500, and I've got a bigger giveaway planned for 1,000. So just a heads up, there will eventually be giveaways. I'm just, yeah. And hopefully that will be a lot easier for me to do once I'm also in my house too, because then I don't have to worry about like, because right now our mail is going over to our Granny and Papa's house. That's where we get our mail at, and so yeah, whenever I mail stuff to other people, hopefully you will not be getting their address. You'll be getting my own address as the return address. And I mean, that's probably not something that most people would kind of feel weird about, but I don't know. Yeah. But I think now that is all for everything. I'm going to keep trying to stay optimistic about this home loan process going on right now. Things seem to be going well. Hopefully they'll continue going that way. And yeah, I'll be back next week to show you everything that I did, and hopefully have some more great progress to show you. Bye guys. Have a great stitching week. And yeah, bye-bye.